Sir, can you share your presentation, sir? Yeah, now it's okay, sir.
Presentation is visible?
Yeah, you too, sir. Yeah, sir. Sir, we can start. Almost the people are coming around 13 people. Let us see one by one.
Yeah.
Premji, you can start introducing Premji.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am Prem Kumar, Chairman of Association of Consulting Civil Engineers Coimbatore Center. It is my pleasure to welcome you all for this orientation session on understanding nominal mix for concrete, from which the questions will be asked in the quiz. I welcome Dr. Sudhagar and Engineer Elam General and also members of ACCE and all the engineering students for this session. I must appreciate your enthusiasm to participate and learn. That should be the spirit of a future civil engineer to win in this competitive world. I would like to mention a few words about Dr. Sudhagar. He started his career as a faculty and he shifted to consulting, and later he joined ACC Limited, a leading cement manufacturing company in the country. He started his career as a sales manager and grew as a technical head of Southern region of India. Then he left ACC and started his own consulting firm by the name Dimensions. Until date, he is successfully rendering structural engineering services and other services. He is also a past secretary of Association of Consulting Civil Engineers Coimbatore Center. So this is it about Dr. Sudhagar. So wish you all the students a very good luck. Over to Dr. Sudhagar.
Thank you, sir. Morning, participants. It is really nice to see the overwhelming competition, and we are happy that we have initiated this competition on behalf of Association of Consulting Civil Engineers India Coimbatore Center, the Indian Concrete Institute Coimbatore Center, and ACC Limited. Today's session will be an orientation for you towards the competition. This is not a question bank for your quiz program. Of course, the questions will be based on whatever subjects we are talking now. So I would recommend to participate or very involved in this session and also do further reading. I understand you will also have another detailed session on mixed proportioning as per IS 10262. So today's session will be a preamble or a context setter to both understanding nominal mixes as well as a context setter for the understanding of proportioning as per IS 10262, which will be handled by another subject expert in a short while, maybe a couple of days from today. So let us quickly jump into the topic. The word nominal concrete mixes is applicable when you make a site batching. Usually it is used in site batching only, not in batching plants of ready-mix concrete suppliers, where they usually use a designed concrete mix. Nominal mixes are used for site batching for odd works, or where the quantity of concrete itself is taken. But it is very important for us to know nominal concrete mixes, because if you look at the whole construction industry as a pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid, which may be low in value proposition, but the highest volumes comes from residential building construction, which normally uses nominal concrete mixes, unless it is a large township group housing kind of a project where mixed designs are also used. So what I mean to say is, our tomorrow's encounter is going to be with nominal concrete mixes. Basically, when we start with small level projects, and thereon you will be graduating to projects of a higher technical specification and technical challenges. So what is this nominal mix? It is a mixed proportion recommended by IS 456-2000, which is popularly called the Bible of the civil engineer. This is recommended by IS 456, and this proportions are mostly misunderstood, because there are a few fine points but very important points which have been highlighted in the code IS 456, but we usually ignore. For instance, if somebody asks you, I've had this experience myself when I go to any fresh engineers, I ask them what is the nominal mix for making M15 concrete. The initial, they will give me an immediate response: 1:2:4. If I ask M20, it is 1:1.5:3. If I ask M25, they give some value, maybe 1:1:2, which means they have not understood the content properly. Please understand, nominal mixes are only applicable up to grades of M20. For M25, if someone asks you a nominal mix proportion, you should say, sorry, I don't know, because you will design the mix based on the basic properties of the aggregates to be used, the kind of workability we will require while using this concrete, etc., etc., which also you will be oriented towards that also in the next session. So the understanding is the numbers only: 1:2:4, 1:1.5:3. These numbers are very popular in the field with fresh engineers, with practicing engineers, builders, everybody. But what we fail to understand there is it by volume proportioning, or is it by weight batching, proportioning based on weight, and what are the trials to be done, what is to be done to avoid a failure? Those are not understood properly, for which we will be orienting you today. Okay. Now, there is a statement published here: concrete is the most abundantly used building material. This was not published yesterday or the day before. It was published. Every one of you would appreciate the fact that it is more true today, because we are in a era of rampant civilization. Urbanization is going on very rampantly. So the use of concrete has not even doubled; it has multiplied itself manifold. So this statement is very, very relevant today. And as we see this statement, we should also be looking at it through the perspective which I just told you. Tomorrow's concrete is mostly to be used in volume wise. It is to be used in housing projects, which would normally use M20 grade and below. So to understand nominal mixes becomes very, very vital. Okay. Coming to the definitions, I have two definitions here on what is concrete. Most of you would have an academic definition, probably who have already taken the course on concrete technology. They would describe concrete as a mixture of binder, fine aggregate, coarse aggregate with water. Description of concrete. I would say for an actual definition, we would take it like this. It is a building material which is generally strong against compression and weak against tension. It is plastic and workable and moldable when it is in a fresh state, and it attains strength and stiffness on hardening. So this definition is more or less giving you a picture of why concrete is being used, because it is very, very strong in compression. It is moldable into any form. It is durable than most of the other building materials. So concrete is a very popular building material. To occur, which could probably be you or me, it is a homogeneous mixture of aggregates. Here comes your academic definition. It is a homogeneous mixture of aggregates, coarse and fine aggregates, with a binder and water. It may or may not additives, but nowadays almost all concretes involve the usage of some admixture or additive, because we expect more out of concrete. And the quantity of the ingredients are based on the requirements of the behavior of fresh concrete and the hardened concrete, which means what I would use, how much I would use, depends on how I will use it and for what purpose I will use it, or the engineering requirement of the concrete in a hardened state. namely the strength part, the control on the crack width, etc., etc. So today we also have to look at a very important perspective of concrete, which is cost. There are in our book talking too much about cost, but when it comes to a practical sense, not only concrete, any building material, any engineering material for that sense, it qualifies to be used, one, basically because it would satisfy the engineering parameters in terms of the strength. Strength can be in terms of the compressive strength or tensile strength or the abrasion resistance or the impact resistance, the tenacity, etc., etc., the ductility, etc. So it is all the engineering parameters. So one side is the strength. The second major factor, why material for producing anything. I am not pertaining this to concrete alone. It is for any engineering material. So the second would be the availability, the easiness in which he would avail that material and he can use it to form a product. Third would be formability or usability. How easy material, and most importantly, at what cost? Because today's market is all based on cost. Like any product is developed and it is sold in the market at some cost. And if this cost is feasible only, if this feasibility is defined properly, then the product comes into use. For example, you get a concrete which is highly durable. Say somebody claims it will not even crack for 200 years. We are all happy. Which is highly strong. Like for example, you are happy. But if they cost you a bomb, if they say, oh, per M cube I would charge you 1 crore. I mean 1 lakh or even 10,000. It sounds rubbish to us, because the cost part of any building material or any engineering material per se has to be controlled, and the cost is the final envelope into which all these engineering properties, usability, availability, etc., are being put into. So it is important for us to understand the concrete mix itself, and through which you will also understand many other engineering aspects. Why I am emphasizing so much on cost is, like, once within that you will have to find how you will give the maximum performance of the concrete as a building material. So let's try to answer the following question. What is the percentage of housing versus total construction projects? At least in India, this number stands to be somewhere between 60 to 65%, which means 65% of expenditure on construction is based on housing or housing related projects. Then what percentage of a housing project is concrete? Anybody with a little bit experience on estimating and costing would again tell you it is at least 50%. So 50% of a building is made of concrete in terms of cost. And what determines the cost of concrete? It is a very simple question. How do you calculate the cost of concrete? It is the summation of the cost of the various materials plus the cost of handling it and placing it. So it is dependent on the cost of cement, the cost of fine aggregate, coarse aggregate, water, electricity required to produce this concrete, the cost of manpower, the cost of pumping or carrying it to the formwork, and the cost of vibrating it. All these are part of the concrete cost. Now, in this, which is the most sensitive, I would say it is the cost of cement, because that comes as a product from a seller. Others are mostly vernacular. It is from a local source. Of course, sand bears a cost. Coarse aggregate bears a cost. But cement is like a commodity which you buy from a seller. Now, where to control cost? Traditionally, people were controlling cost by controlling the amount of cement which goes inside. For them, the costliest material in this chain would be cement. So they think if I can minimize the usage of cement, I can control cost. There is a you need to understand this point very critically. You should not try to minimize it beyond a certain level. Thing is nothing but minimization of the wastage or minimization of the redundance. It is not minimization from the required level, which means you are compromising on the quality or the engineering parameter of the material itself. So you can control cost by minimizing wastage or avoiding extra usage of the costliest material in this chain, which is cement. But what do we actually do? The not so informed builder, he will try to reduce cement. If the minimum cement content prescribed for a particular grade of concrete is say 300 kilograms per meter cube, if he resorts to something like 250, then he thinks he has saved 1 bag per m cube, which is roughly around 400 rupees. But what has he actually done? He has sacrificed the quality. He has sacrificed the quality of the concrete itself. So we should not be compromising on the quality. We should not sacrifice quality for cost. Of course, cost is important. Now, this table gives you the various possible ingredients in concrete, starting from coarse aggregate, which is the other part of the concrete in terms of volume. Then comes fine aggregate. These two are binded together by a binder, which is cement is the most popular binder nowadays. But there are other forms of binder. You have lime concrete, you have bituminous concrete. So there can be any form of binder. It has water. When cement is used or lime is used, we use water. Bituminous concrete. So admixtures, and each of these ingredients will have its own function in the concrete matrix. Namely, the coarse aggregate is the primary filler. It offers the density. It offers the majority of the dead weight required for the concrete. Fine aggregate fills the voids between the coarse aggregate. Therefore, it is called as the secondary filler. It also influences workability. It doesn't mean the coarse aggregate will not influence workability. I will touch upon this point now in a short while from now. So the coarse aggregate and fine aggregate combinedly influence workability with respect to their shape, the particle size distribution, the texture, etc., etc. So they also influence workability. Coarse aggregate, fine aggregate. Then comes the binder. The primary job of a binder is like a glue. It is a gum or a glue which binds together all the particles of the concrete. It also ensures durability, locking the finer pores or voids within the fine aggregate or the whole matrix as such. The density of this blockage determines the durability to a great extent. Then we have water. Water is chemically participating with the binder in the form of hydration, and also water plays a major influence. It has a major influence on the workability of concrete, which any dumb head will be able to understand. You pour more water in concrete, it is more workable. And so water influences workability to a very high extent. But as a civil engineering student, we should be knowing the Abraham's law, which states that higher the water cement ratio, the lower will be your strength and durability of your cement product. So we should try to minimize water usage. Minimize also, again, I'm telling you, you cannot make zero water concrete. Yeah, some amount of water is required for the hydration of the cement. Now there is a hint for a quiz question here. Maybe I'm not guaranteeing this question will come, but maybe somebody can ask you what would be the minimum amount of water required for hydration of cement. So whatever I have discussed so far has already got so many questions hidden inside it. So hydration is a process which would require water. If you are aware of the Abraham's law, then your tendency would be not to use more water, but you would still have a requirement of rheology. I mean, the behavior of concrete when you are using it, pouring into the formwork, compacting it or molding it, basically. So to alter its performance, you use admixtures or additives. There are many kinds of admixtures. Primarily, they are classified into chemical admixtures and mineral admixtures. Chemical admixtures, the name itself is making it very obvious. Mineral admixtures are basically pozzolanas, which we use in the form of fly ash, slag, metakaolin, rice husk ash, etc., etc. Additives is a slightly modified or an enhanced version of a chemical admixture, which is specifically used to alter some rheologies in concrete. The same table it is expressed in terms of a in a graphical form. The don't take the absolute values for your references. It is only a relative thing what you should see, because nowadays concrete mixes are done in fantastically different environment. You have different ranges of concrete, so these proportions will not be applicable to any concrete which you take, but it is generally so. For example, this graph represents coarse aggregate content will be somewhere around 35 or 36 percentage to 55-56 percentage. You cannot fix these numbers, because for the same grade the mixed proportions from area to area, from source to source of the aggregate will vary. So this is only a relative representation. But what we should understand from this picture is, like, coarse aggregate constitutes to the maximum volume of the ingredients, then comes the fine aggregate. When you compare the volume of coarse aggregate and fine aggregate, cement is somewhere in the range of 10% or so when you put both put together. Then water to cement is always in the range of 0.5, 0.55. Almost 50% of water would be required based on the quantity of cement you use. You should also appreciate that there is some air content. You cannot make a zero air content concrete. At least till now nobody has produced it, and you have very degrees of admixtures, but their influence on the rheology is going to be great. Okay, coming to the performance of concrete, we have to view concrete in three different stages. One is the fresh stage, the other one is the hardened stage. These two are very popular. Transition stage is one stage which as a student you may not have had a very good experience with, or you may not have interacted with the concrete in a transition stage. First stage, we all would have done the slump cone test. You know how fresh concretes look like. You know how to do the slump cone, where at the first stage, the most important parameter which is viewed for concrete is the workability. In the hardened stage, the most important parameter is mostly the compressive strength. In some special structures, we also have a look at the tensile strength of concrete, the crack pattern, the crack width, etc., etc. But coming to this transition stage, what is this transition stage? It is a stage in which the initial setting of concrete is over, but it has not attained the final strength, or it has just started the process in attaining the final strength. So initial set is over, hardening has just started. This is the stage which is called transition. It is called young concrete sometimes, or in a colloquial language, I would say this is a stage where the concreting is done, finishing is done, and it is just time for you to start curing the concrete. It is the time just before the curing. This is called a transition stage. This stage is very important for you to engineer, to supervise, to take care of, because this stage will ensure the right performance of concrete. It will also ensure a longer durability for the concrete. How do we understand concrete? We were discussing this just in a short time before. How do we understand this concrete? It is workability, strength, and durability, but the most popular parameter is strength. We only talk about grade of concrete. We are aware of workability, but the awareness dies after the concrete pouring is done. Though workability is a very significant indicator of the final performance of concrete also. For those of you who would go to sites and would be using this concrete, remember, workability is an indicator. If you have very high workability, then you should start thinking more about what is happening inside this concrete. If you have very low workability, you should start thinking. So workability, though, is a parameter that you, once you place the concrete and vibrate it and finish it, but it is an indicator of what has gone inside the concrete. And you can almost predict what will happen to the concrete after it is hardened completely. Then comes the strength. The predominantly used strength parameter is the compressive strength. There are research topics, or there are applications, there are tender documents which also emphasize the requirements of tensile strength also. But concrete, we know, primarily is used to the advantage of its compressive strength. So the grade of concrete is very, very important. We test the grade of concrete on 28th day. Why do we test it? We will come to that in a little while from now. Why 28th day? That is a very popular question. And thirdly, the durability. The durability of the concrete is till today a very, very obscure value. You cannot make a mixed design and say this concrete will be durable for 50 years or 100 years or 75 years or 10 years. You cannot determine that, basically because durability is not only dependent on the concrete mix ratio what you use, it is also dependent on the engineering practice which you adopt to place the concrete, vibrate it, how you cure it, how you maintain the concrete, what is the usage of the concrete structure, what are all the other environmental factors affecting it. So durability is a function of so many parameters that you will not be able to predict it very accurately, though there are indicative parameters. There are tests which will tell you the level of durability. It will not give you an absolute value. Tests like permeability test, chloride penetration test, softivity test, all these are tests for durability of concrete, but they will only give you a relative value of the durability performance. It will not give you an absolute value of durability in terms of timelines. Now come to the strength. We usually classify concrete in terms of grade of the concrete, which is starting basically from M5, M7.5, M10, etc., etc. This grade is called as the characteristic strength of concrete. If you search your code book for definition for characteristic strength, your IS 456 will state that it is the strength of a material below which not more than 5% of the test results are expected to fall. Which means if the strength is 95% okay, then it can be assigned that strength. To be very precise, if you test 100 samples of a particular material, it can be concrete or anything else, and out of 100 samples, if 95 and above pertain to a value and above. See, for example, in concrete, if 95 cubes of samples out of 100 cubes which you take, if 95 cubes exhibit strength of 30 MPa and more, then you can grade that M30 concrete, which means 5 cubes can be below 30 also. So it is only 5% tolerance which the code book is giving. So 95% of the test results should pass. Only 5% of the test results should fall below the expected range. Then you can classify that material as that strength to be the characteristic strength of that particular material. For concrete, we use a 28-day timeline to test this. A lot of people get confused why 28 days. It is basically to have a standardization across the globe. 28 days is the time period in which more or less the hydration process is complete. At least the initial hydration process is complete, because there are evidences and proofs that hydration still continues even beyond 96 days. Particularly if you are using pozzolanic material for the concrete as an admixture. So 28 days is more or less an accepted timeline throughout the globe, and this is an easy number, because if you cast a sample on a Monday, you will have to test it on the 4th Monday from then it will sum up to 28 days. Otherwise, what you'll do, like there will be a confusion of you striking out 28 days in your calendar. Then you will have a doubt whether you should cure it for 20 days and test it on the 29th day, whether you have to count that day on which you have concreted into this 28 days. All these confusions will come. So remember the day of the week. So if you are casting something on a Monday, you will have to test it on a Monday. That is why the earlier test, like not the grade test, the other tests which are done on concrete is all in the forms of 7 days. Like you either test it on the 7th day, 14th day, 21st day, or the 28th day. So if you are casting something on a Monday, remember you will test it on the next Monday, or the next Monday, or the next Monday, or finally the 4th Monday, which is the 28th day, which will give you the concrete grade itself. That is it with the characteristic strength. Now coming to the ingredients one by one. Basically, there are two popular forms of binders available in cement itself. One is the ordinary Portland cement, and the other one is the blended cement. Out of the blended cements, the most popular one is the Portland Pozzolana cement. The other second popular form is the PSC, Portland slag cement. Now, what happens when OPC is combining with water? It forms something called as the calcium silica hydrate gel, CSH gel, and it also forms lime, calcium hydroxide. This calcium hydroxide is very much essential for the concrete because it ensures that the concrete stays alkaline. It also plays a vital role in blocking the finer pores of the concrete matrix. But what happens if you use more water cement ratio? This calcium hydroxide get washed away or carried away out of the concrete matrix while you cure the concrete, and that is why probably you would have noticed some white kind of effervescence or some white substance coming out of concrete when you start curing it. This is nothing but the calcium hydroxide, which is washed away due to the excess water cement ratio you have used during the preparation of the concrete itself. But this problem is mitigated to a certain extent when you use blended cements, because this calcium hydroxide, a part of this calcium hydroxide, not entirely, remember, part of this calcium hydroxide is again reutilized by silica, which is available in the form of the admixtures, additives, what you have used, the mineral admixtures, basically the pozzolana materials, the fly ash or the slag. So this lime is again combined with silica. Part of this lime is again combined with silica, and it again forms a small quantity of calcium silica hydrate, which means this is why the blended cements are more durable, as well as they give a little bit extra strength in the long term. This is because of the secondary hydration which takes place. So why it is important to understand this? Because the 28-day strength is a kind of a misunderstood figure. In case of situations where you can afford to wait, you are not in a hurry to get 28-day strength. Even if you can wait for 56 days, then there are enough possibilities where you can use lesser quantities of cement and get a cheaper concrete, but still ensuring that the engineering parameters are met. Not at 28 days, but at 56 days. And it works the vice versa also. In case there is a requirement of a higher 7-day strength, then accordingly you can engineer your mixed proportions to get a higher 7-day strength or a 28-day strength. These are the Box compounds basically available inside cement: C3A, C3S, C4AF, and C2S. I would not dwell more into this because we are going to talk more about the proportioning rather than the quality control of the concrete itself. But what you can understand from this is all these 4 compounds do not behave in a similar manner. They have a sequence of reactions. They have their different intensity of reactions. they produce different kind of effects while they react. So each of these box compound has a specific role to play in the hydration process. That is what you need to understand. So I hope we have dwelt enough on grade. We just saw what is the characteristic strength, workability. You people know the easiness in which you can transport, place, and mold the concrete, which is popularly understood by the slump cone test. There are other tests for workability also, you might be knowing. And durability is an indicative estimation of the service life of the concrete structure, but it is a highly complex thing to derive exactly. You cannot do that. It's almost impossible because it's a function of various other parameters such as exposure conditions, etc. Coming to exposure conditions, again, your IS 456 gives you a lot of classification on the exposure conditions. I'll show that table also now. Water cement ratio, we understood what is Abraham's law. One basic moral which we should never forget is higher water cement ratio means lower strength and lower durability. Curing is an important process in which you ensure that the water cement ratio which you have added during the preparation of concrete is very effective. Which means curing is not a process of adding more water. Curing is some technology. It need not even involve water. You can do curing without water also. So there are curing compounds, which is basically the protection of the water cement ratio, ensuring that the water cement ratio what you have added is fully utilized by the cement for its hydration. So that is the process of curing. And finally, we will come to mix proportioning, which is the basic language which your concrete maker will understand. You cannot go and talk to him on I need a concrete with 60 mm slump or 75 mm slump. All you can tell him is mix 1:2:4 or 1:1.5:3, whatever. You can give some numbers through which he will understand and make the proportion. Now, IS 456 classifies concrete into three categories. One is ordinary concrete, which is up to M20 grade. They have not put lean concrete here. Anything below M10, we classify it as lean concrete. So ordinary concrete, standard concrete, and high strength concrete. Standard is M25 to M55, and from M60 above, it is called high strength concrete. Remember, today's topic, nominal mix, is only applicable for ordinary concrete. These are the workability conditions, but this I would say is more or less very theoretical in nature. See, 75 to 100, for example, indicates a medium degree of workability, but sometimes in sites you will understand that 100 mm slump even causes segregation. It is highly workable. Sometimes it is flowable also when you vibrate it. So it is all relative. It is all indicative. This you will understand the meaning of it when you actually experience yourself with concrete. You touch concrete. You supervise concrete. The more and more you are with concrete, you will understand these numbers in a different perspective. Workability of concrete, I would say, is I was just talking about the influence of the aggregates on the workability of concrete. In this picture, you can see two diametrically opposite forms of coarse aggregate. One is sharp and angular. The other one is rounded and smooth. Common sense would say you that if it is round and smooth, you will get more workability. But then what will happen is you will not have enough adherence. You will not have enough bonding between particle to particle. So you cannot completely use smooth aggregates. You cannot use the pebbles completely as aggregates unless and otherwise you have modified your mix proportion to suit that. But what we have to understand is basically we have to find a balance between the shape and the angularity and the sharpness. You cannot have very flaky or long elongated kind of aggregates, because that will hinder your workability to a great extent, and it will force your concrete manufacturer, concrete maker to add more water, and therefore you will lose the advantage of strength and durability. Durability, I told you, it is complex. It is dependent on the environment in which your concrete structure is going to be, or the concrete element is going to be placed. The cover which you have given to the embedded steel. See, the durability of concrete is not only does not have threat only from outside. It has got a threat from inside also. If you have reinforcement inside, and if the quality of reinforcement is not good, or if the reinforcement inside starts corroding and swelling, then also the durability of your concrete is gone. And the reinforcement is protected by properly giving proper cover thickness. Therefore, the kind of tolerance you have maintained while giving cover thickness is important. The quality of concrete in the cover is also very important. I've seen many sites where the cover thickness is okay, but the cover concrete is all honeycomb. In having the cover thickness at all. So the quality of cover concrete, the actual of cover what you have given, the type and the quality of the constituent materials, if you are not having ratio what you have used, the workmanship, the efficiency of your curing, the shape and size of your member also is a very key parameter. Any postgraduate student here would appreciate the phenomenon of stress concentration in sections. Basically, if it is an overstressed area in concrete, it is susceptible to deteriorate fast. Anything which is stressed higher will deteriorate fast. The durability comes down. Therefore, the shape of this member, like for example, if you have rounded corners, then you will not have stress concentration. That itself is an advantage for you to maintain durability. So the shape of the member, size of the member, the stress concentration in the member is also playing a vital role in the durability of concrete. These are the exposure conditions. Our IS code has classified the exposure conditions into 5 categories, namely the mild, moderate, severe, very severe, and extreme. If you look at the mild exposure condition, it describes it like concrete surfaces protected against weather or aggressive conditions, except those situated in coastal areas. But in today's urban world, I don't practically see a mild exposure condition because in cities you have a lot of threat of carbonation, even though you are away from an industrial zone or anything like that. The kind of carbon monoxide as an exhaust from the vehicles itself is a threat for you. So my personal advice would be you design concretes at least for a moderate environmental exposure conditions, because there are claims that the rains which we get nowadays are acid rains. Is it acidic because of the pollution in the environment? Therefore, it is safer to design concretes at least to the moderate exposure condition, if not mild. Unless you are very sure that you have mild environmental condition, I think you should choose moderate. This is table number 5 of IS 456, which tells you one very important parameter. See, if you are using plain concrete, the minimum cement content you should use in terms of kilograms per m cube of concrete. For mild exposure conditions, it is 220 kilograms. For moderate, it is 240. But today we are going to talk more on structural concrete. It is not plain concrete. So therefore, we will. There is enough and more probability that you will land up in a much higher strength. So the nominal mix is only a guarantee of the minimum strength what you will attain. So M20 adopted through this nominal mix table in your IS 456 need not always be. It can even sometimes be M30, or I have experienced M35 also in some cases. This is the table. This is where you find the information regarding the nominal mix for concrete in your IS 456. It is table number 9, which says that the leftmost column gives you the various grades through which for which you can design the nominal mix. Starting from M5 up to M20, you can always very well see that M25 is not. So you can use this table only up to grades. The second column says describes or gives you the value of how much of aggregates you should use per 50 kg of cement. The title is total quantity of dry aggregates by mass per 50 kg of cement. So if you take M20, for 50 kg of cement, you will use 250 kg of fine and coarse aggregate put together. Mind you, it is total aggregate. And mind you, it is dry aggregate. The aggregate has to be absolutely dry. Now you have taken 50 kg of cement, take 250 kg of total aggregate. But if you read further, it says it is generally 1:2, but subject to an upper limit of 1:1.5. Which means this 1:1.5 is having slightly lesser coarse aggregate, and a lower limit of 1:2 and 2. This 1:2.5 means it has got more coarse aggregate. Now we will dwell upon this after we look at the next column. The final column gives you the quantity of water per 50 kg of cement, which is the maximum quantity of water. So for example, in M20, the maximum quantity of water which you can use is 30 kg per 50 kg of cement, provided your dry aggregates are your aggregates are absolutely dry. If you already got some moisture content, then you cannot use this 30 kg of water. You will have to reduce something, like to the extent of whatever moisture is already present in your aggregates. For example, your aggregates has already got 5 kg of moisture, then you cannot use 30 kg, you should use only 25 kg. Okay, coming to the note below, it's proportion of the fine to coarse aggregate, which is the 1:2 or 1:1.5 or 1:2.5, as described in the column number 3. The proportion of the fine to coarse aggregate should be adjusted from upper limit to lower limit, which is the upper limit 1:1.5, which is the lower limit 1:2.5. It should be adjusted from upper limit to lower limit progressively as the grading of fine aggregates become finer, which means if as the finer it becomes, you should go lower. So when you are at the top, the coarse aggregate should be, the fine aggregate should be the coarsest. So if you have a very coarse fine aggregate, then you should use 1:2. If you have a normal zone 2 classification fine aggregate, if you have a very coarse fine aggregate, you have a very fine sand, then you should use 1:2.5 as the ratio to proportion fine aggregate. So the proportion of the fine aggregate to coarse is adjusted from upper limit to lower limit progressively as the grading of fine aggregates become finer, and also the maximum size of a coarse aggregate becomes larger, which means the general ratio of 1:2 is applicable for zone 2 classification sand and also 20 mm nominal size of aggregate. So when your aggregate becomes larger, you are supposed to go down, which means when your aggregate is the smallest, you are supposed to go up. So when you have aggregate mm, then you should use a ratio of 1:1.5. When you have a coarse aggregate of 20 mm size, you are supposed to use the ratio of 1:2. When you have an aggregate size of 40 mm, then you are supposed to use the ratio of 1:2.5. Okay, I know it will be a bit confusing as of now, but it will be easy for you when we do an exercise. See, I have taken an M20 example of an saw. The total aggregates per 50 kg of cement is 250 kg. And on a generality, if we assume that we are using 20 mm aggregate and zone 2, or it could be manufactured sand also, then the ratio between fine aggregate to coarse and 166.67 kg. 2 times 83.33 is 166.67. So both put together, 83.33 plus 166.67 is 250 kg. So 50 kg of cement I have taken, 83.33 kg of fine aggregate I have taken, and 166.67 kg of coarse aggregate I have taken. So the actual ratio as recommended by our IS 456 is 50 kg is to 83.33 is to 166.67 kg. If you divide all these values by 50 to make it into a simpler ratio, then it becomes 1:1.67 is to 3.33. So this is the actual value, actual nominal mix ratio by weight as recommended by IS 456. It is not 1, 1.5, 3. Now, if you compare this with 1:1.5:3, you will find that this is a little bit more leaner mix. The amount of cement saved here is quite high. If 1, 1.5, 3, if you are using, then you would probably use up to 50 to 60 kg of cement extra per m cube of concrete. Those of you who have got interactions with site engineers, you would have got this feedback that for M20 concrete, we roughly use 420 to 425 kg of cement per m cube, but wherein the minimum requirement is only 300 kg. So these points are to be noted here. All these proportions mentioned by IS 456 are by mass. It is not by volume. It assumes that the aggregates are very dry. If it is having moisture, then the necessary weighing adjustment has to be done, which means if I say 83.33 kg, I am talking about 3 kg of if supposing it is moist, 0.33 kg exactly, probably 3.33 kg is only water. I only have 80 kg of sand. So this should not happen. So in order to ensure that I have 83.33 kg of sand, I should take something extra. How much extra? It depends upon how much moisture content the sand is having. Therefore, it is important for you to understand the moisture content of the aggregates when you are using this concrete. Now, how to find that? Today, it is very simple. You have infrared moisture meters. You can use a electric oven, not the conventional convection oven. What you have, you can use a microwave oven, which will evaporate the water very quickly. So it is very easy for you to find the moisture content of the aggregates at site. So accordingly, you will have to do modifications of the mix proportions, for which I am giving you another example. In case you don't have the facility to exactly measure the moisture content, then IS 456 gives you another way, which is not so accurate, but at least it will guideline, which says very wet sand will have 7.5% of moisture. This is in table 10 of IS 456. It also says moderately wet sand will have 5% moisture. Moist sand will have 2.5% moisture. Crushed rock or moist gravel will have 1.25 to 2.5% of moisture. My experience says you can, for 2% of moisture, you have to be very careful. You should know whether the sand is very wet, moderately wet, or moist. Now, how to find this out? That is through experience. I will give you a simple trick to gain this experience. Go to your labs, take absolutely dry sand. You purposefully add 7.5% moisture to it, mix it, and try to have a feeler of how the sand will feel when you take a lump of sand in your hand. By doing this, you will have an experience of 7.5% of sand, which is very wet sand. Then you can do the same exercise for moderately wet sand by adding 5% to absolutely dry sand. Moist sand, you can do it with 2.5%. You can have all the 3 samples in front of you, samples multiple number of times, then you will be able to judge it. And this has to be there if you have to avoid the usage of infrared moisture meter or the microwave oven at your site. So this will come only through experience, or you have to bypass this and resort to scientific methods in which you will find the percentage moisture content. Now, to understand this better, I have assumed a moisture content of 7.5%, which is mostly the case when you get fresh sand either from the riverbed or even from a M sand manufacturer. Mostly it is having 7.5% of moisture, and I assume a 2.5% moisture for coarse aggregate. And now, what is the correction I have to do? Instead of 83.33 kg, I will take 89.58 kg of sand. I arrive at this because I have got 7.5%. So I divide 7.5 by 100, which is 0.075. I add it with number 1. So it is 1.075. I multiply this 1.075 with the initial value, 83.33. So if I had assumed 5% moisture in fine aggregate, I would have multiplied 83.33 by 1.05. If I have assumed 2.5 percentage, I will multiply it by 1.025. I hope now you understood what I am trying to say. So based on the percentage of moisture, either assumed or derived from scientific methods like infrared moisture meter, etc. If it is 1 point, if for example you have got 4.5 percentage moisture, if you are using a moisture meter and checking it, so you will have to multiply 83.33 into 1.045. I got 0.045 by dividing 4.5 by 100. So you will get 89.5 kg of fine aggregate when you have assumed 7.5 percentage of moisture. And similarly for coarse aggregate, you will do the same exercise. For initially you got 166.67, you will have to multiply 166.67 by 1.025. So you will land up in 170.84 kg. Now your new ratio would be 50 kg of cement. Instead of 83.33, you will multiply it by 1.075. So your weight of aggregate is 89.58, and your weight of coarse aggregate is 170.04. And now it is 50 is to 89.58 is to 170.04. To make it simpler, you divide everything by 50. So you will get 1 is to 1.79 is to 3.4. Now, whatever is the extra moisture content you have calculated, this 7.5 and 2.5, 7.5 percentage of 89.5 kg and 2.5 percentage of 170 kg is actually 4.17 kg. Both put together, you already have 10.42 kg of moisture in your aggregates. Therefore, you will have to reduce the 10.42 kg from your 30 kg, which is allowed. So your maximum moisture content, water cement ratio will become 19.58, which is a result of 30 minus 10.62, 10.42 divided by 50. 50 is nothing but the quantity of cement you are using. So water by cement, your water cement ratio is now 0.39. So 1 is to 1.79 is to 3.4 with a water cement ratio of 0.39 will be your actual nominal mix what you will be adopting at rather than your 1 is to 1.5 is to 3 what you would normally believe. So roughly you will at least save 50 to 60 kg of cement per m cube of concrete. So imagine how many m cube of concrete you would use in your lifetime or a 10-year period, and for each able to save 50 kg at least, you have done a lot of good to yourself as well as to the environment, because every kg of cement you save, you don't waste. It means actually you have saved 1 kg of carbon dioxide being pumped into the atmosphere. So environmentally also it is good that you don't waste cement. Economically also it is good that you don't waste cement or you don't use extra cement, and you are actually burying the profit, your profit or your client's profit inside concrete. So you will not do. When cement exceeds a particular, a little bit of extra cement is no harm. But if you keep on adding more and more cement just to achieve more quality, actually it will deteriorate the quality, because cement is a highly shrinkable material. It will form shrinkage cracks very rampantly, and therefore you will end up losing strength and workability. So once you have arrived at this proportion, you should use proper batching techniques. Either you can convert this weigh batching into volume batching by suitably designing pharma boxes. This is a pharma box. You can design a pharma box or use a standard pharma box. Fill the aggregates in volume. Know the actual field density of the aggregates, and therefore it will be easy for you to convert these numbers in mass to volume, for which it is a simple fundamental of knowing the field density of aggregates. With that, use very good quality of water. Ideally it should be potable water. Use proper batching techniques, and then you will get very, very good results in terms of your concrete quality. Again, I'm telling you, it is concrete quality in terms of performance of your concrete depends on how you handle it, how you take care of it during the transition phase, and how you would take care of it or maintain it during the hardened phase. So This is all about nominal mixes. I have more on the mix design, which will be touched upon in the next session. So I would like to end my session at this point. Over to the host. If
Thank you,
there's
sir.
anything to add, you can add, and if not, we can close the session.
Thank you, sir. You are detailedly explained what are the precautions you have to take care, and while doing mix proportioning, what are the things to be pointed out. Detailedly explained, sir. Meanwhile, any doubt will clarify. So as of now, nobody has texted me on any doubt. Let me check, sir. The people are with the 30 seconds delay from here to YouTube live. So just have a look, sir. Then based on that, we'll conclude the session, sir. We have scheduled up
Okay.
to
So
11:15. There are another 3 minutes is there. Let's check,
okay.
sir. Meanwhile, you can you want to say, you can proceed further.
All right.
Participants, if you have any doubt, just text me. I'll be able to answer the question of Dr. A. Sudhagar. I hope the people are totally understand. Then the people are not yet raised any queries. So we'll wait some time, sir.
Okay.
Sir, normally the field condition, if the people are normally doing by volume batches, as you
Hmm.
rightly say, we can, the people are most of them